Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Okay, you know how much I love to dream. Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. I love big dreams. I love hearing people's big dreams. Nothing delights me more than having people come up to me and talk to me about their dreams and goals. We were just at a friend's birthday party over the weekend, and we got to spend the night at a cabin. It was so much fun. We had a great time, but my favorite thing was that one of my friends and I sat and actually just talked about, like, what's the next 5 years? What's the next 10 years in your life? What do you really want that you haven't ever told anybody before? Like, that just delights me to no end. So I love big dreams. I love people talking to me about them, but I do want to kind of talk to you about something that we need to talk about if we're going to be big dreamers. We also need to be consistent doers. This is where I see that some of you are already glazing your eyes over. And so you're like, Carrie's talking about being consistent. Ugh, can we just talk about our dreams and goals? Okay, so here's what I want to kind of show you is that dreams equal fun. Consistency equals results. So anytime that we have this space where we're actually dreaming about our life and we're like, I want this and this would be amazing. And we get in this place where it is just, if you're an imaginative person, it feels like you're getting lit up by this process, which is so much fun. But then we go to the next phase of this, which is if you're having a dream and a goal, you eventually need to ask yourself, what do I need to do to make that happen? And a lot of times it's not like these big things. A lot of times it's consistency. So the other day, I was actually having this conversation. My husband and I were talking about this, and Curtis told me, we're both not baseball people, but bear with me. But Curtis said, you really love hitting a home run. He's like, that like lights you up. Like you are all about big action once. And I'm like, 100% that's me. I'm like, give me something that I can do once. I'll go all in. It will exhaust me. And he said, I really think that you might want to consider learning how to hit singles and doubles. And I was like, that sounds kind of terrible. He's like, I know it sounds terrible, but I promise you, like, that's where you're going to get the most consistency happening around these goals, right? He's like, if I have a big event or a big thing, he's like, I know that you're the person that is going to figure out how to make it happen. But then we go back to consistency, and he's like, but oftentimes when we're talking about our goals, it's not the big action. It's not massive action. It's consistent action. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today is like, what is it that you need to consistently do in order to go after your goals? So for instance, right now I'm really trying to work on my health. That's like my number one priority right now. And so part of that is consistent daily action. And so as I look at my thing, I'm like, can I hike a mountain? I'm like, is Everest available? Can I go and do this? Can I go to some crazy retreat for 6 months and like really just kind of dial in my health? And then I realized I'm like, I'm trying to hit home runs. And so then I had to come back and I had to be like, well, what is consistent daily action that is actually going to get me to my goal down the line? And I was like, I need to drink water. I need to get my steps in. I need to lift my weights, and I really need to like dial in my supplements and this and that. And like, it's so simple. And I am so bored. That's what happens, right? We make the list of things that we actually have to do. And then we're like, you want me to do this every single day? Think about sales, right? Like any type of business that you have, there's probably a selling component to it eventually. And so when you think about sales, it's like, well, what do I want to do? Well, there's the burst of action, right? There's the massive action, or there's consistently doing the work every single day. I was talking to this high school kid that is selling a fundraiser thing for his sports team. And he was saying that he had so many of his friends that did like this burst of action and they sold like, like 40 cards in one day or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I'm kind of taking a different approach though. I've just decided to make like 10 calls a day and like go and visit people so that I can have, number one, I can tell them like what I'm doing and why it's important, but I can also like hang out with them for a little bit, check in on them. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he said that I think he said that he sold over like 120 or something doing this. Like, because he's like, my coach gave us like a month. So he's like, I'm just going to do 10 a day. And he's like, I'm like crushing it and nobody knows. And I just thought that was hilarious. But I said, are you bored? And he goes, oh, I'm so bored. He's like, I'm bored making the calls, but he's like, but then when I get to actually meet with people, that's like the exciting part for me. But he's like, every day I'm like, I don't want to make calls. I've talked to everybody I know. Like, this is annoying to people. And I just thought that was really fascinating how I asked him, I'm like, do you think you could have called 130 people in a day? And he's like, I don't think I could have, but I could have probably done it in a weekend. But I just want to kind of bring it back to like, what are we trying to do? Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with home runs, but there's also nothing wrong with singles and doubles. And what I want to kind of mention is I want you to see for yourself and check in with yourself of like what you're really good at. For a long time, like in my 18, 19, 20s, I was really good at being a bench warmer and observing. I was really good at observing everybody else's goals and dreams. And then I'd come back to my own and I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. So I want you to just kind of see yourself and kind of think about what are you good at? So for instance, if you're like me and you're in the home run category, I want you to just realize that it is a muscle that we need to work on of being consistent with smaller actions. That might be something that we really want to focus on for the next 3 months of like, let's just get really good at consistent action for 3 months. So then we're setting ourselves up for success. Now, you might be really good at the consistent small action. And maybe what you do need to do is actually go out and learn how to hit home runs. And that's okay as well. It's okay to learn how to take massive action for a really intense amount of time and then learning how to come back from that and get back into the smaller, consistent action. So I want to just kind of mention, like, there's not a one size fits all here for you, but remember that dreaming is fun. And if you're in that space of just continuing to dream and like stay as a bench warmer, right? That would be our bench warmers, would be the dreamers. That's okay. But then we want to learn how to actually do this. Now, before we kind of end, I want you to know that I want all of you to be beginners. As adults, we sometimes decide that we can't be beginners at anything and we can't make it look messy and we can't do this. I did an exercise the other day where I was blindfolded and we had to dance. And I was like, I'm not a dancer, but I'm actually pretty good. I have clubbing experience, y'all. That's the type of dancing I know how to do, but I'm actually really good at it. And the person that was kind of taking me through this exercise was like, came and tapped me on the shoulder and was like, let it be messy. Like, be a beginner. It's okay. It's okay to be a beginner at this. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, I want to try ballet. And so then I started doing that. And she was like, I don't know what I looked like. I had a blindfold on, but she was like, yes, that's it. And I couldn't stop laughing because of that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it must look pretty bad if she's like, that's what being a beginner looks like. But it was fun. I had a great time because as soon as I allowed myself to just get in the moment of being a beginner at ballet, not having any instruction at all. It was actually delightful to just allow myself to be kind of bad at something, but let my body move. And so whether you're learning how to hit home runs, whether you're learning how to take consistent action with smaller things and hit those singles or doubles, I just want you to remember that it's okay to be bad at it and be a beginner. Let yourself be a beginner. It's going to be so much fun. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.